You can eat clean and cut out junk food and avoid sodas and still be damaging your liver and driving fatty liver disease without even knowing it. And a lot of the time, it's coming from foods marketed as healthy, the ones that say high protein or natural or low fat right there on the label. So in this video, I'm going to show you exactly which foods to watch out for and why. And I also want to go over healthy alternatives to choose instead. And then toward the end of the video, I'll show you a simple pattern that you can see on food labels that makes these problematic foods much easier to spot. And if you follow these steps, you're going to see improvement very quickly and you'll start reversing your fatty liver in just weeks. And if you're new to this channel, I'm Dr. Drkim. I'm a double board certified physician, and on this channel, my mission is to give you the science and practical tools to live longer and feel better. Let's get into it. Okay, so the first one is flavored yogurt. Now, yogurt by itself is a great food. It has protein and probiotics. It has calcium. The problem is what gets added to it. If you pick up flavored yogurt from a store, it could be strawberry or vanilla or blueberry, and flip it over and look at the nutrition label, the added sugar is often way higher than you'd expect. A single serving of many popular flavored yogurt brands can have anywhere from 12 to 23 grams of added sugar, which is a lot. The American Heart Association recommends keeping total daily added sugar to less than 36 grams for men and 25 grams for women. So just one tiny cup gets you halfway there or even past it. Now, why does that matter so much for your liver specifically? Because a lot of that added sugar is either fructose or sucrose. And sucrose is just table sugar that breaks down into glucose and fructose. And fructose is special in a bad way because your liver handles it very differently than glucose. Instead of being used throughout the body for energy the way glucose is, fructose gets sent mainly to the liver. And when you get too much of it, your liver starts turning that excess into fat. That process is called de novo lipogenesis, which is just a technical way of saying your liver is making new fat from sugar. And that fat gets deposited right there in the liver. That's how fatty liver develops. There was a study that was published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition, and they found that just 7 days of high fructose diet increase fat deposition in the liver and reduce liver insulin sensitivity. And here's the thing, a lot of these yogurts may say low fat on the front, or now the newer trend is adding high protein to everything, and that may be true, but that's also marketing that can hide what's really going on. A lot of the food companies take out the fat and then add sugar to make it taste better. So you're trading fat for sugar and your liver is the one that's paying for it. So personally, I would go with plain yogurt with no added sugar, and then you can just add your own sweetener, something like allulose or monk fruit, and you can throw in your own fresh berries. And if your calories allow it, go with regular fat content, not fat-free. The fat makes it more filling and it gives a better texture, and the fat from plain dairy is usually not the issue here. Now, the second food is actually a drink, and it's juice, and I talk about this all the time. This one is sneaky because juice is often marketed as healthy and a lot of people give it to their kids, but if you drink juice of any kind, always check the ingredient label and look at how much sugar there is in each serving. Some labels will say things like it's 100% natural or this juice has no added sugar, but that is still a problem. Even if a juice has 0 grams of added sugar, it's still highly concentrated and you're drinking it without the fiber you would normally get from whole fruits. And that fiber matters a lot. Fructose from whole fruit is usually not the issue because it comes packaged with fiber, which slows down the absorption, and many fruits also contain vitamin C and other compounds that help reduce some of the harmful effects we get from fructose. And this is where I need to explain something important about how your body handles fructose. When you eat fructose, your small intestine is actually the first line of defense. It's like a filter or this metabolic barrier that under normal conditions clears about 90% of low-dose dietary fructose. But that filter has a limit, so when too much fructose comes into too fast, the intestine gets overwhelmed and all that unmetabolized fructose spills over into your liver. And this is what makes most juices so problematic. We have lots of studies that show that the same amount of fructose is more likely to promote fatty liver when it's consumed as a drink rather than a food. You also get more fructose spillover when it's consumed all at once instead of slowly over a meal. So when someone drinks a glass of orange juice very quickly in the morning, that fructose hits the gut faster than it can handle, and that overflow goes straight to your liver where it gets turned into fat. But if you eat an actual orange, all that fiber slows everything down and gives your gut more time to do the job. And fructose does something else that makes this whole thing even worse. Fructose doesn't stimulate leptin the way glucose does. So leptin is one of the hormones that tells your brain that you're full. So when you consume foods with a lot of fructose, your brain just doesn't register the same way, and you don't feel as satisfied. And that makes it much easier to keep eating and eventually overeat. And that same issue applies to bottled smoothies as well. That's another common offender that I see all the time. A lot of these smoothies are marketed with words like green or immune support or full of vitamins, but many of them have 30, 40 or even 50 grams of sugar just in one bottle, all in liquid form, usually consumed fast with very little fiber. And based on what the research shows, this is one of the worst ways for fructose to reach your liver. So what should you do instead? Well, always opt for the whole fruit, or make your smoothies at home using whole fruits with the fiber still intact. And it's always better to blend as opposed to juicing. And then just drink it slowly. That one change, just slowing down the rate, can make a big difference over time. Now let's talk about breakfast. Granola, cereal, flavored oatmeal packets. Let's start with granola first, because this one is a little tricky. If you make granola yourself with oats and nuts and seeds and no sweeteners, that can be totally fine. The problem is the packaged and processed versions that get sold as health foods. Because a lot of the store-bought granola looks very healthy on the surface. They include things like oats and nuts and dry fruit, but once you flip it over and look at the ingredient label, many of them have a surprising amount of added sugar. It's pretty common for them to have 10, 12, even 15 grams of sugar just in one serving. And that serving size is usually tiny, often around 2/3 of a cup. So it's very easy to pour a lot more than that into a bowl without even realizing it. And the same thing happens with cereal. Even the ones that say all the right things, like high fiber, whole grain, or heart healthy, or high protein, all of them can still come with a decent sugar load. And then flavored oatmeal has the same problem. Those little instant packets with apple cinnamon or maple brown sugar that may sound healthy, but once the flavoring and the sugar gets added, well, then it becomes a very different food. Plain oats, on the other hand, are a much better option. They're high in fiber, and they digest slowly, and they usually don't spike your blood sugar the same way these processed versions can. So with any of these foods, make it a habit to flip the box over and check the ingredient label for added sugar line. And in general, the closer you can get that number to zero, the better. Okay, let's talk about protein bars. And these are everywhere now. Post-workout, meal replacements, afternoon snacks. And the protein itself may be fine, but a lot of these bars also come loaded with added sugars and other processed ingredients that make them a lot less healthy than they look. Some popular protein bars have anywhere from 15 to 20 grams of added sugar just in one bar, which means at this point you're getting something much closer to a candy bar than a real whole food protein source. But the bigger issue is not just the sugar, it's the whole package. A lot of these bars are made to be hyper palatable, which means they're engineered to taste really good and they're very easy to overeat. So on the whole, they don't fill you up the same way a real meal does, but they still deliver a concentrated hit of calories and processed ingredients. And that is just one small part of why ultra-processed foods are such a problem when it comes to fatty liver. They make it very easy to take in more energy than your body needs, and that excess energy has to go somewhere. And a lot of it just ends up getting stored as fat, including the fat in your liver. And yes, some bars are better than others, but in general, I would not think of protein bars as a health food. I think of them as an ultra-processed convenience food. So if possible, we always want to get the bulk of our protein from whole food sources. Things like eggs and fish and chicken or other meats, or Greek yogurt or legumes. And if you still need more protein, well, that's when I would try to get it as a powder where you can make your own protein shakes and control all the ingredients. Now, let's talk about sushi. This one is a little different because the issue here is not just sugar. Fresh fish by itself is an excellent food. Great protein, omega-3 fats, minerals, all of that. But when most people order sushi, they're usually not just eating fish. They're eating rolls. And a lot of those rolls come loaded with things like spicy mayo or eel sauce or teriyaki glaze and crunchy toppings. So what looks like a light and healthy meal can very quickly turn into a concentrated hit of refined carbs and sugar and processed fats. And that combination matters for your liver, because when it comes to fatty liver, it's not just about one nutrient, it's about the overall metabolic load. Fast digesting starches and excess calories and foods that are easy to overeat all push your body towards insulin resistance. And insulin resistance is one of the main drivers of liver fat. So if you like sushi, the fix is pretty simple. Just change the format. Sashimi is a much better option. More fish, no rice, and no sugary or high-calorie sauces. Or if you do get rolls, go for simpler ones with less sauce and less rice and more actual fish. That way you go from something that works against your liver to something that is much more liver friendly. And the last one I want to cover is dried fruit and trail mix. Now the nuts in trail mix are usually great. You get healthy fats and you get minerals and fiber. That's not the issue. The issue is the dried fruit. And just like we talk about with juice, fresh fruit is not the problem. Whole fruit is one of the healthiest foods you can eat. The problem is what happens when the fruit gets concentrated. So once fruit is dried, most of the water is gone. So now that sugar is packed into a much smaller amount of food. And that makes it very easy to eat a lot of sugar in just a short span of time. And this connects back to something we talked about earlier. So when fructose comes in too quickly and in large amounts, some of that fructose spills over into your liver, but some of it can also stay in the gut where it can start damaging your gut barrier, which is that lining of the intestine that helps keep bacteria and toxins where they belong. And when the barrier gets weaker from excess fructose, you get more inflammatory compounds that leak through and reach your liver. So now the liver is dealing with both fat and inflammation, and that is a perfect setup for worsening fatty liver disease. So trail mix can still be fine, but choose the one that is mostly nuts and seeds without the dry fruit or M&Ms. Now there are a lot more foods that we can go through, but here's the pattern that I really want you to take away from this video, because once you see it, you can't unsee it. The foods that damage your liver are often foods that have been stripped down and concentrated or sweetened or processed into something very easy to overeat. That's the pattern. So it's not just sugar is bad, it's what the food industry does to food. They take something that may have started out as fine and then they remove the fiber and they concentrate sugar and they add sweeteners and processed fats and they turn it into something that is very easy to overconsume and actually damaging to the liver, all in pretty healthy packaging. Unfortunately, the goal for a lot of these companies is not your health, but to sell as many products as possible. Real food in nature comes in with built-in brakes. But processed food usually removes those brakes, and often that's what drives a lot of the chronic diseases that we see today. But the good news is, if you catch it early, fatty liver is one of the most reversible conditions we deal with. We have studies that show that just 9 days of fructose restriction decreases liver fat. So you can see results in just days to weeks. And this is not just about your liver. All of the same pathways like insulin resistance and excess fructose load and gut barrier damage and inflammation, they're all tied to type 2 diabetes and heart disease and high blood pressure and cancer and even dementia. So when you start cleaning this up for your liver, you're improving a lot more than just one organ. You're healing your entire body. Now, if you do suffer from fatty liver, I made a separate video on how to reverse it very quickly, and you can check out this video over here. I hope this is helpful. Stay healthy, and I'll see you in the next one.